Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 6 starts now.
Dearborn on alert. Right now, a search is underway for a missing mother and her 3-year-old daughter. We begin Local 4 News at 6 with a very concerning situation for one Dearborn family.
So let's get right out to Victor Williams with more on what police know about her disappearance. Victor.
Yeah, Devin and Kimberly, from what we understand, police are trying their best to bring this person home as quickly as possible. We're going to go ahead and get that picture of her up so you guys can see, but 28-year-old Jordan Wise was last seen on October the 28th at Children's Hospital in downtown Detroit. And what separates this case from the rest is that Jordan is believed to have had some type of mental health crisis following a confrontation with family members at that very same hospital. And that was the last time anyone has seen her. Now, of course, family and friends, they're worried about her, but they're also concerned about her 3-year-old daughter that's with her. So if you see her, investigators, they want you to call the Dearborn Police Department as soon as possible. Here's a description of Jordan. She has black hair, brown eyes. She's about 5'4", and she weighs about 190 pounds. So once again, family and friends are hoping for her to return home as soon as possible. Victor Williams, Local 4.
Victor, thank you.
Big day at the Detroit Fire Department as Chuck Sims was officially named commissioner, removing the interim tag from his title. He leads a department working to overcome staffing issues as well as some embarrassing incidents involving firefighters drinking on the job. Sean Lay live with more on what Commissioner Sims has planned now for DFD. Sean.
Big time announcement here, Devin. It impacts everyone when you think about firefighters, ambulances on the street. So Commissioner Sims, now official, leading this department. He had two big things to announce today besides him being named commissioner, talking about response time and how many ambulances are on the street.
The DFD team has made great strides, but realizes we still have work to do.
An emotional moment for Chuck Sims, a lifelong Detroit firefighter, now named fire commissioner. And under his interim leadership, Sims says the department solved two major problems: response time and getting more ambulances on the street.
Dispatching a historic high of 38 to 40 ambulances per day. Historic Code 1 response times, once hovering around the national average of 8 minutes, now averaging around 7 minutes and 15 seconds.
Mayor Mike Duggan highlighting the stories we broke showing a department in crisis. Several instances of drinking and driving and crashing on the job, drinking in firehouses. Duggan says as interim, Sims cleaned up those problems. We've also been tracking how a lack of manpower led EMS crews to being closed day to day, as up to 12 units closed in one day. This is the first time we've been able to ask the mayor to respond to that issue.
Commissioner Sims sat down. He showed me what the hiring process was, and there were problems in our HR department that did not process hiring fast enough. And the commissioner was good enough not to say that publicly, but he came to me and said, here's the timeline. If we don't move immediately to increase the privates, we're going to have a problem this summer.
But with challenges came a special moment. The men who mentored Sims when he was a young firefighter were here as he was named commissioner.
I almost it brought tears to my eyes because it just goes to show what type of effect that I have on other people and what they feel about me. And those two men I respect tremendously.
Back here live, that really was a special moment, and Chuck Sims' wife and son were there along with his in-laws. Very, very special day here for the fire department and the city of Detroit. Now, those numbers about the response time below the national average, 7 minutes 15 seconds plus 38 to 40 ambulances on the street. We've been tracking lower numbers than that, but by our union, we checked those numbers. The union says they are all accurate. We'll continue to follow that situation, though. However, Devin, back to you.
We sure will. All right, Sean.
Well, there's a push in a number of states to prevent former President Donald Trump from appearing on the presidential primary ballot, and Michigan is one of those states. It's a lawsuit brought by a well-known Detroit political activist, and today the Michigan Court of Claims heard arguments in this case. For more on what happened there, we turn to Local 4's Rod Maloney. He's live in the newsroom with more on the story. Rod.
Yeah, Kimberly, today's hearing happened just the day after a Minnesota court refused to prevent the former president from appearing on the ballot. He'll be on the ballot, at least in the primary. The case actually puts Donald Trump's attorney arguing on the same side of the case as Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and that is a very unlikely pairing.
Detroiter Robert Davis brought this case. He claims the 14th Amendment of the Constitution precludes former President Trump from running because of his involvement in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, which he views as an insurrection. The amendment dates back to the Civil War and hasn't been used since the 1870s. Davis sued the Secretary of State because she won't step in and declare the former president ineligible for the ballot. Before Judge James Robert Redford in Grand Rapids today, Benson's attorney, Heather Meingast from the Michigan Attorney General's office, made her case, saying Congress alone is the one to make that determination.
We have no administrative process. We have no process for conducting any kind of inquiry or investigation into something like this. The Secretary doesn't have any subpoena power. It's just simply not there. The legislature hasn't, provided us with any kind of administrative vehicles.
And President Trump's attorney, Michael Colombo, quoted from a California court ruling saying roughly the same thing.
The Constitution assigns to Congress and not to federal courts the responsibility of determining whether a person is qualified to serve as President of the United States.
Now, it's important to point out Robert Davis is not an attorney, yet he did argue for better than a half hour, his part of the case, getting ballots printed and off to the legally mandated time so military members can have ballots is one of the questions at hand. Davis wants the judge essentially to decide Trump cannot be on the ballot and have them shipped right away. The judge didn't make a ruling. He's going to have a written opinion soon. Back to you.
Rod, I know you mentioned at the beginning of your report that Minnesota's Supreme Court decided yesterday to allow the former president on the ballot. I'm wondering, did any of that come up at all today?
Well, as a matter of fact, it did, because Robert Davis was actually happy. It was kind of a split decision because they allowed the primary ballot, the president to appear on that, but the Minnesota Supreme Court did allow for a question of whether the president can be on the regular presidential ballot if he wins the primary. And that, Robert Davis says he would like to be part of more or see happening more here in the state of Michigan.
I can see that. Okay, Rod, we appreciate it.
President Biden is applauding the reopening of a Stellantis plant as part of the new labor contract between automakers and the United Auto Workers Union. The president put on a UAW T-shirt while speaking to union workers in Belvidere, Illinois. President Biden praising the record UAW contract the union struck with the big three automakers, saying record profits should include record wages, echoing the thoughts of Sean Fain. Ahead of the 2024 election, President Biden trying to reassure Democrats that his message can lead to victory next year.
I'm fighting for a place like Belvedere because I came as a president determined to put an end to this trickle-down economics in this country. I mean, I'm serious. I'm deadly earnest. For too long, the wealthy and big corporations have done just fine, but the rest of us were cut out of that deal.
UAW's new contract, of course, includes significant wage increases and job protections. That contract could bring more than 3,000 jobs to, in particular, Belvidere.
A Detroit high school student suffers cardiac arrest during a basketball game and dies, and now Cartier Woods' family is looking to hold someone accountable. We're told they plan to file a $50 million wrongful death suit against Detroit Public Schools Community District and Northwestern High School athletic staff for allegedly not doing enough to prevent that tragedy that happened back in January. At this hour, the lawsuit has not been filed despite the family's attorney's claims. Once that happens, though, we'll let you know.
Former Ann Arbor Catholic priest is heading to jail for sex crimes. Timothy Crowley, now 74 years old, worked at St. Thomas Rectory in Ann Arbor. He pleaded guilty this past August to 2 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct dating back to an incident 30 years ago. He's now been sentenced to a year in the Washtenaw County Jail and then 5 years probation. He'll also have to undergo sex offender treatment. He will be listed on the sex offender registry for the rest of his life.
It is the end of the road for a local auto supplier that's been around since 1975. Unique Fabricating, based in Auburn Hills, has filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection because it doesn't have sufficient capital to continue operating. The foam, rubber, and plastics manufacturer has locations in Michigan and 2 other states, also has locations in Mexico and Canada. As of 2021, Unique Manufacturing had 915 full-time employees. Unfortunately, the Chapter 7 filing means all of those jobs will be terminated.
Some positive news for the stagnant housing market. Mortgage rates took a big plunge over the past week. Average 30-year fixed rate now stands at 7.5%, more than a quarter-point drop from last week's average, where it was 7.76. It's the largest drop in mortgage rates that we've seen in more than a year. Little perspective, last year's average was around 7%. Applications for loans up slightly, about 3%, but they remain very low as potential home buyers wait for lower interest rates, but also higher home inventory.
Okay, well, here we are at Thursday, looking forward to the weekend, and boy, what great weather we had today.
Perfect day. Let's hear about it, Kim.
It really was. We had a lot of sunshine. The sunset tonight was just beautiful, and now we've got a pretty skyline here in Metro Detroit. 51 degrees downtown, but upper 40s for Howell and Pontiac, 51 in Adrian. Mostly upper 40s to low 50s across the board here in southeast lower Michigan. Warmer than it was yesterday. 52 right now in Port Huron, mid 50s at City Airport. We're 10 degrees warmer in Mount Clemens than we were 24 hours ago, and 16 degrees warmer in Port Huron. The reason why so much warmer over the last 24 hours up to our north is because yesterday these cities were in the 30s. So definitely an improvement north of M59. Tomorrow starts out chilly, 38 degrees, and we only make it to 51, but 51 is normal for this time of year. Now, not normal this weekend. It'll be cooler than normal and freezing. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.